Good morning, everyone. This is Shankar and Antréa live from Austin, Texas for the SHANKX show. We are a marketing PR firm for healthcare and wellness, and we are here because we went to a conference, Free2Care, and Antréa attended it, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what we learned there. And as you can see, Austin is weird, Austin is fun. This is what Austin is known for. So enjoy our talk. I'm gonna go back to our studio. Well, hello, Antréa. How are you?
Hi, Shankar. I'm good. How
Yeah,
about
as you
you?
can see, I am in this awesome pink studio. It's a coffee place called Revival, and I apologize for the noise. But hey, we gotta do what we gotta do. But we are here for a good reason. You, Antréa, attended the Free2Care Annual Conference 2022, and you learned so much. You met the thought leaders and the VIPs in this free market healthcare space. So please, Antréa, tell us what were the highlights from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. So I spent a couple of days here in Austin at the Free2Care Annual Conference, and it's not their first conference, but it was the first time that SHANKX was there, of course. Even still, there were a lot of familiar faces. It was, of course, hosted by David Ballot, the director of Right on Healthcare of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And yeah, familiar faces that I saw were Sean Kelly, Dr. Chris Held, Harlan Pickett, Dr. Dickerson, Dr. Mochi Gemba, of course, who was one of the moderators for a panel. And there were people who I heard about because I followed them on social media spaces, or I know of their names, like Dr. Cliff Porter, Dr. Marian Mass, Dr. Goyal of First Primary Care, I believe it's called. And there were equally amazing individuals that I hadn't known of, but who shared their stories. And I just thought it was important to mention them. So Dr. Jack Franklin out of Llano, Texas. There were government representatives from all over, like we heard straight from the White House with Dr. Raul Gupta. There was the state treasurer of North Carolina, and I think that they just turned on some really loud music here, so sorry if you hear that. But just all kinds of people, and I can't forget that we had a bunch of free market enthusiasts there that were there as well. Harlan Pickett being one of them, Doug Aldean, Brett Shoemaker, Jamie Lagarde, who was the former CEO of Sedera Health, and one of my favorite executives. I don't know if I mentioned Brett Shoemaker, but Dr. Lazapina, who just started the Rio Grande Valley chapter of the Free Market Medical Association with Dr. Cynthia as well. But he had a pretty impactful story, and I just thought it was really important to mention that there were just so many great people there.
Well, what do you think is one of the highlights of? I mean, okay, so there were so many amazing speakers there, and I unfortunately couldn't attend, but you represent our uh, marketing and public relations company SHANKX pretty well. And I just want to know. So it was 2 days, right?
Yes, it was 2 days.
Okay, so let's go into the first day. What stood out the first day?
So, hands down, my favorite talk was by Dr. Darren Okuda. Simply put, I had never looked so closely at healthcare waste and fraud through the lens of unused medications in the way that he delivered it. So he's a neurologist. He focuses on new treatments for multiple sclerosis at UT Southwestern in Dallas. He talked about a lot of people with MS and how they stop taking their medications and the reasons why, and when they do it, how they have so many doses left over when they and some of the reasons are that they're switching medications. So he got into the reasons why they stop taking medications. Some of it is that their insurance costs are just way too high, or the medication itself is too high, which is probably because of their insurance. Some don't like injecting themselves, like maybe they had to do that because they switch medications. But the whole point of the whole thing, at least what I got out of it, was that there's innovative ways to change healthcare and to change that doctor-patient relationship in the way that he does it. So he's examining medication waste in grave detail and that's his contribution. So, I mean, I can't go into the numbers, but it's pretty disgusting. I have a photo where it's just the medication is stacked to the ceiling because he wanted to show how much unused medication comes back, and that was just a voluntary survey. We don't know the people that haven't actually said that, like returned medications and things like that, but there's reason to have policies that shape how medications are used, or in this case, not used. And so he talked a lot about what to do with unused medications and like take back programs and incentivizing folks to turn in their medications and donations. He explained how TPAs are involved, like because they don't allow for certain medications, and how that's harmful because um, PBMs leverage against them, like, well, this is a generic, we don't know how this mechanism works and things like that, where it's like all they're trying to do is save the patient money, but in the end, the patient can't even access it because the PBM and the TPAs aren't allowing them to do that. So yeah, that's one thing that
You
really.
mentioned the state treasurer, Pennsylvania state treasurer was there, right?
It was the state treasurer of North Carolina. Yeah, he was
North
there.
Carolina. Okay.
Yep.
And so,
Oh,
did he speak as well?
yeah, he spoke, and that was actually pretty funny, Shankar, because he was basically explaining. So there's a charge master, which is basically a list of fake prices, and
Who uses the charge master?
so
It's hospitals
hospitals.
who use it.
Yeah, and there's not really a standardized. There's no like wherever you go, you're going to get a different price. But he requested it, the charge master, and they literally gave him a thick booklet of black redacted pages, like hundreds of pages. And yeah, so he showed that to us. Um, that was pretty funny, just to show about there's, it's really kind of the wild, wild west, and there is no transparency in healthcare. Um, Yeah, that was pretty scary. The state treasurer can't access it, and he said, "I don't know what you call it in Texas, but here we call that the middle finger."
Okay, well, I hope it was okay to share that information. Otherwise, you'll get in trouble with the state treasurer. But no, it is truly interesting to know that hospitals and other big systems just don't want you to understand what the true cost of healthcare is, and that I believe is really a foundation of what allows for this excessive waste and pricing in healthcare. And I see we have a comment here by our friend Harlan Pickett. Great info, he says. It was indeed a great conference. The example of waste you are talking about was shocking. I mean, I know Harlan Pickett, and he is just an amazing trailblazer in also from the workers' perspective, understanding everything involved and also offering individuals and companies solutions to really kind of work with free market principles and help people and companies find the right solution, right?
Yeah, and it was really great to have him there. There's not a lot of brokers who get it that are in that space, and we talk a lot about choice, how it's personal, why it matters in healthcare. And while one of the aims of Free to Care is to give more choice in healthcare, and to be able to choose the medications that you can use, like the generic is cheaper, and people like Harlan have firsthand experience because they're working with individuals or employers that have individuals who are saying the reasons why they don't want to continue a certain medication, or why they need to get on this plan, or why they need to see this doctor. So that, I feel, is a part of what we can do, just having that knowledge disseminated. And they really did a good job too in teaching us how to talk to our representatives so that we can help to drive policy that makes the change in healthcare. But if we don't have all of the players in there, then we are missing a piece of the puzzle. So having even GPOs and PBMs in there, and TPAs, it would be really, really helpful. But definitely, as a subject matter expert in his field, to have him in there was really necessary and good, I think.
Antréa, you're starting to be all with your acronyms, and you're really starting to take it far here. GPOs, PBMs.
Yeah, so I just learned about group purchasing organizations myself, and we'd need 3 more hours to talk about it. But there was a documentary, and so that was shown, and it was really, really neat. I think you just really have to get plugged in and go to these kinds of conferences and participate in these organizations so you understand what's happening in healthcare, because there's there's not just one middleman, which is what I kind of thought before I went in. Like, okay, I know there's TPAs and PBMs, but like it just is ever growing, like, and the acronyms just continue to increase, and the people that you see involved where they really shouldn't be are, or intentions, changing, misalignment, all this stuff. So, or evolving over time. So in 1987, we had this agreement with the government, and then everything got corrupted over time or something. And it's not all doom and gloom, but it's just to say, yeah, there's a lot of acronyms because there's a lot of players and there are a lot of things that have changed. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things that have not changed either. So yeah, I really enjoyed being able to learn. I didn't know how much of a learning session it would be, for sure. The
Yeah.
documentary was really eye opening as well.
Well, and that is really very key to understand it. There's so much to learn, and it is intentionally made so difficult to understand because the difficulty allows people to take advantage and make a lot of money, right? And what we do, and a lot of the associations and companies and people we are affiliated with, is we drive education, we help understand, whether that is from a advocacy standpoint or whether that is just simply to help association and companies and physicians help bring in more business, more clients, because at the end of the day, um, patients, employers, company, everyone just craves for more understanding and transparency in this field.
100%.
So, yeah. Um, what would you say? Okay, so that was the first day. Anything else that stood out to you for the first day?
Yeah, there was a lot that stood out. I got to cradle 65 million-year-old dinosaur eggs, and that was
Oh, really?
a scientist who brought them with him and his team, Schill. He talked about some, like, well, what he does is like talk about innovative ways to use imaging and things we can do beyond like physicians to change healthcare. It's crazy. So his story is something like he was a fully able-bodied person, and he crashed and fell into a coma. I believe it was a motor vehicle accident or something like that. So he actually woke up 6 months later, and we were in COVID, and he was a quadriplegic. But
Mm-hmm.
truly, I mean, this man is a genius. He's worked with NASA, for Caltech, the California Institute of Technology. He's been instrumental with the imaging of like Mars rocks. He's published many, many, many articles. His take on healthcare like obviously changed once he became a patient that needed to see a doctor and needed to take medications, but he's still fighting to work for ways like for neurological disorders and other things like that. So he really stood out to me as well because it's truly like it's truly a different crowd, like a lot of different people in the room having conversation, talking about ways to bridge this gap, this really wide gap. But that stood out to me the second day as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So then there was the first evening, right, where you and I got to enjoy the weirdness of Austin a little bit. Uh, I think we have to build this story in, Andrea. You booked a hotel that basically was a hipster hostel, right? We had shared bathrooms, and it was just like the courtyard of the hotel was turned into a Latin party place with vendors and music. I mean, and then we were located right on 6th Street, and for anyone who has ever gone to Austin, there is the touristic part of 6th Street where you have all the bars and all the big buildings, right? And that never really was my vibe. But then when you go into the eastern part, you just get into a more authentic part of Sixth Street, and every like there was basically side by side music venues where you would go in, and it was like a maze of people and DJs and musics and tacos. So and then we discovered this Hotel Vegas place, which was turned into just a music kingdom, right? Anyway, little tangent, but we really enjoyed that. Let's go to the second day. By the way, what stood out to you at during the second day, Andrea?
Yeah, so actually, it is National Suicide Awareness Day. And yeah, I mentioned there was a documentary, so that was shown on the second day. And Dr. Marian Mass, she actually, she's a pediatrician who's doing great work in Pennsylvania and in her whole field. She's the co-founder of Practicing Physicians of America, and she co-authored a white paper with David Balot called the Physician-Led Roadmap to Patient-Centered Medical Care. And she brought attention to several of the reasons why physicians die by suicide. And there's like 300 to 400 every year. So that's pretty nuts. So that's what we would call burnout. They call moral injury. And then obviously all of the red tape that physicians have to go through, not being able to control. That was actually something that Dr. Jack Franklin out of Yano, Texas, talked about. One of his pains was that, and he was talking I'm now skipping from the documentary back to the patient panel. I'm not patient panel, but the panelists, where I believe they were talking about like a direct care business or something like that. And he was talking about one of his pain points as a doctor before switching into direct primary care, was that he couldn't control the costs that patients were paying. Like, people would ask him in the hospital, so how much, why am I paying so much for this? And he would literally say, I have no idea. And people would just be confused, obviously, because how are you a doctor and you don't know why I'm paying what I pay? Like, you're treating me. Well, it's because of all of the things that I mentioned, right? So it was really interesting hearing them talk about that from a business perspective. And I did just have to rope in that, we honor our physicians and know that they go through a lot. And later, maybe at the end, we can skip through to just some signs and resources to point people into the right direction, because it's a little bit remiss to talk about it without talking about some kind of solution. But that was interesting. I don't know if you have anything to say before I talk about the next panel that really stood out to me on the second day.
No, I was definitely thinking about our physicians that we kind of have closer relationships with, and I have a feeling you want to transition to Dr. Mochigamba's panel, or is that coming
Yeah.
later?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's definitely, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Roger Mochigamba, who is really a pioneer in the space in San Antonio. Him and us, we are good friends, and we drive business there, and we drive the movement there. And then I think he moderated a panel that consisted of Dr. Kristen Dickerson from Houston, and who were the others? Tell us what that was about.
Well, I loved that panel because I was just waiting until the hipster motorcycle passed. I loved that panel because they were talking about, employers, and it was the employer panel. So it was Texas Rep James Frank and Janice Brewster Martinez, who has worked for over 10 years at the Texas Disposal Systems, or Waste Systems, I believe. And she is HR. She's the HR director. So her take was really interesting because she kind of enlightened us on how, I guess, her main goal is sort of to meet to meet employees where they're at. And there's a lot of things that we don't think about in terms of their budget, right? So maybe, especially depending on where they're working, what their field is, what their job duties entail, we think like, oh, okay, so telemedicine is it. It's in for everyone. But what about those that don't actually have smartphones? Or what if they go straight to equipment and they work on machinery all day long, and they don't have a chance to look at their phone? Because she addressed a lot of those issues of how to work through that and meet the employee where they're at and make sure that they get the healthcare, the coverage, or the plans that they need, what that looks like, what matters to them. And I just appreciated that, because I think in this space we hear a lot of physician advocacy and even employer advocacy for saving money and all of that. But really, it comes down to the person that's in the room, the doctor and the patient. And there's a lot that they go through, especially if they don't have a lot of money. Maybe they don't get paid a whole lot, or they just have a lot of demands that just consume their bank account, quite frankly. And so thinking about different ways of educating them, putting posters on walls, and even if they don't, speak English, having them bilingual, just these different things to really truly help. And I appreciated that so much, because there's just a lot of noise sometimes, but it was great to hear like some solutions, and again to hear the voice of the employer. I thought was really important. And Dr. Roger Mochigimba navigated all of that beautifully, because he was able to bring that out right with the conversation.
Right. Yeah. So let's see. I really want to make sure you think of any other highlights, because there were probably so many highlights, because just looking at the lineup of speakers. But if there's anything else you want to mention before you go into pointing out some of those resources you were alluding to.
Yeah, I would say definitely, if I can find a way to share my screen without being too haphazard, I can actually just show some of those photos.
Yeah, please.
So I just share my screen here, and the window, okay, slide. Oh, it's unable to share. So I'd like to show the picture of the dinosaur egg, and I'd like to show the picture of the people that I spent some
Okay,
time.
let me see if I can take care of that. Let me see. Okay. So here.
I got it. I think I got it.
Okay.
Yep. So bear with me for one moment. So it was, there were so many people. There were so many highlights. Just being here in Austin, having a change of scenery was nice as well. We did go out to dinner, and I believe I can now finally share. Okay, can you see it?
No, not yet.
Okay, we'll rely on you then.
All right. Why don't you talk about the resources a little bit, and I'll find that picture with the egg.
Okay, so yeah, so there's some vital signs, and some of them I think are just like the increased use of medications, or alcohol or drugs. If they talk about wanting to hurt themselves or die, that's a vital sign number one. There's emotion, so there's extreme mood swings. There's feelings of hopelessness or having no purpose. That's vital sign number two. That's emotions. Vital sign number three is attitude. So if there's a physician that's being negative about their personal and their professional life, having inappropriate outbursts of anger or sadness, that's vital sign number three. Number four is relationships, withdrawing or isolating themselves from their family, friends, coworkers, talking about being a burden to others. That's vital sign number four. Number five is temperament, acting anxious or agitated, behaving recklessly, being uncomfortable, tired, or in unbearable pain. That's vital sign number 5. So if you know someone who's struggling or they're in a crisis, obviously you want to get them the help they need. You can text 988. That's 988. And that is a resource for frontline wellness. You can also go to 988lifeline.org, 988lifeline.org. And this was all provided by the Physicians Foundation. So again, we work so closely with physicians. We care about our physicians. So we want to make sure that they're able to get the resources that they need if they need it. So I think I can probably change the ticker here so that people know what I'm talking about here. So just going to show that. You can call 988, I believe.
No, you just blended in Dr. Zengerle's website, which is a great website to check out, but it's not the resource you want.
That is not what's showing up on my screen. So I will stop and hand it over to you so you can share a few photos for me. But yeah.
All right. Well, I got one, and that's the eggs. So let's show that, and then you can tell us what this is all about here.
Those are 65 million year old dinosaur eggs. Like, what? That's crazy. And you can't see it, but right here, there's justice beams, like the scales of balance. So I thought that was really neat. So dinosaur eggs here. And I don't know all of the scientific language behind it. But yeah, thank you, Lee Schill, for letting me hold those and embrace those eggs. It's crazy. It's awesome and crazy at the same time. Yeah.
All right, I got another picture here, and I think it's a nice wrap-up picture. Tell us what this is about here.
Oh, that was neat. That's gosh, I can't go through all the names. I'll get them wrong, but those are physicians and scientists and advocates and people who were a part of this event, either as a participant, a panelist, a moderator. We've got David Balot, obviously, there in the center. I'm just not going to go through the names because I'm going to get them wrong, but yeah, I got to meet all of these lovely people making a difference. And we're in the Texas Public Policy Foundation on 900 Congress Avenue in Austin, Texas. It was an amazing space to allow us to utilize. And up top is Governor Rick Perry's library, which was awesome. And yeah, really great time.
Okay, let me see. I think I have a few more pictures I can bring in. Let's see here. Okay. What about this one?
That one was pretty neat. So that was Bob Leibowitz. I don't want to get his name wrong, but he was pretty neat. Berkovitz, thank you. So he was the first speaker, actually, right after the opening remarks by David Balot, and he talked about communication and messaging, which is great because what is it all for? If we go to these conferences and we can't get our point or our messages across, what is even the point? So he had us all partner up, get to learn what makes us tick and what turns us off in communication. So we were tasked with a few assignments, and it was awesome to go through them with all of those fine folks in the room because they have such complicated messages as well, right? Like they're pretty difficult. Like how do you explain the MS medication treatments and the underuse or overuse and all of that stuff? So it was great. And then you have Dr. Roger Mochi Gamba, David Balot, and Harlan Pickett, and myself. So yeah, that was a great moment. Oh, this was neat too. So these were a group of, I believe they are all doctors actually, and some of them are practicing PPC, some of them are not, but either way, they are definitely interested in keeping medicine personal and not partisan, and they're interested in price transparency, all of the things that Free2Care stands for. and choice, which is really awesome when you have doctors on board. You have Dr. Marion Mass there in the red that I was talking about, who talked a little bit in the documentary about physician suicide as well. And it was really neat to be in all of their company. Actually, all of us went out and had some pasta and pizza where you joined. So that was nice as well.
Who is this
Oh,
nice gentleman?
yeah, that is Mr. Harlan Pickett himself. He was recording the Health and Wealth Power Hour on KSEV 700 AM radio, which airs from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Central Time, Texas. And it's about, as you guessed it, health and wealth. And that is really important. I think that it was just so important that he be there. He was in Governor Rick Perry's library, just so cool. And yeah, it's just great to have him discuss these things. He was actually recording for Hispanic Heritage Month. It was the first day, I believe, or first or second day. And so all of his guests were from the Latino community, and he was not in Houston, but with his nifty, handy dandy transmitter, he was able to host the show entirely remote. So that's that broadcast. Check it out. They do the replay on KSEV's website on SoundCloud. You can go there and listen to him talk all about it.
Okay, and then we have a final picture.
Ah, well, that is the man
Yes.
himself, Mr. Shankar Ponsalé. And why don't you talk about this photo? Because I think you were there.
Yeah, I think I was there. So this was obviously, this is the Texas Capitol, and this was at the end of the first day. We definitely wanted to check that out. There's an amazing atmosphere there. You just feel like, you can feel all the decisions that have been made throughout history for this awesome state of Texas. It's very serene, really, and it's on a slightly elevated position, and you can watch, see down Congress Avenue, probably several miles down, and it's just a great view at Austin. And you literally feel the leaders of the past, the current leaders, everybody's energy, love and pride for our beautiful state. And obviously, as a Texas file, which both you and I are Texas files, we had an amazing time there, and it's definitely a privilege to be so close to our beautiful capital. And yeah, that's that. So let me come back on here, get a little bigger. Whoop. So there I am. Okay, so thank you all for joining us here for the Shank Show special edition from the Texas Capitol. We really enjoy streaming live, as you can tell. If you need a little bit of help with that, it is really a very powerful tool to influence, to set yourself up strategically and be a thought leader and really drive ideas, emotions, business. And it is so powerful. It is the way to go. And if you need a little bit of guidance with that, reach out to us. Furthermore, just there's this marketing aspect that we can handle, but then a little bit more of an important part is the public relations and how do I influence, how do I become known. As a matter of fact, you and I, we ran into people yesterday who live in San Antonio whom I have not spoken to in probably over 18 months, and it was the entire family, and they were like, "We see you all over the internet, always on your lives and your pictures and your posts." And it is just something that is so powerful. So if you want to learn how to do that, definitely reach out as well, because we have a coaching program, a mentorship program, a mastermind. There's so much we can do for you. But now, Antréa, I think you and I look forward to finding a nice vegan spot, because Austin also happens to be the vegan capital of the United States. There's a lot of vegan choices here, and
Yes.
yeah, we're going to find ourselves a nice place and just end the afternoon probably here in Austin, and then drive back to our beloved San Antonio.
Yes, we're going to do that. But also, for those of you listening and watching, thank you for giving your time on this Saturday morning, afternoon, depending on where you are in the States or elsewhere. We really appreciate you tuning in with us. Hope you've had some fun and learned something about this recap from this recap. And on Monday, if you are a Spanish speaker, tune into the Shank Show in Spanish, because Janet Martinez, who's the Director of Human Resources of the Texas Disposal Systems, is going to be live on the air with myself and with Kayla Liendo, our medical content specialist. So definitely tune in. We're going to elaborate a little further on what she was saying in her panel discussion. And also, maybe Shankar, later you will speak with her in English so that our English speaking audience can also have an opportunity to. So we'll need to coordinate with her and set that up. So yeah, but just thank you so much for tuning in, and let us know what you think of it by writing in the comments as well, if you made it this far.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good, Antréa. I think you said everything at this point. Have a great rest of your weekend. There's still enough left to enjoy, and Antréa and I will do the same. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.